Hey guys, my name is Angel and welcome to my channel. This is actually my first and probably last video, so bear with me. I'm a senior in college and welcome to my final project. So, I took a class this semester called Fairytale Fem and Magic, and just wow guys, I don't know. This was probably one of the most interesting classes I've ever taken in my college career. Like, I'll never see The Little Mermaid the same again, actually. So today I will be discussing one book we read in particular and connecting it with a wider societal issue or phenomenon. We read Toni Morrison's Beloved, and I'm arguing that Beloved uses magic realism to trigger and amplify elements of Black trauma. Before we get into this argument, let's define the differences between magic realism and fairy tales. Let's talk about the similarities first. Number one. Obviously, fairy tales are tales. The characters are fictional. Same with characters within the magic realism genre. The characters are just characters. And two, both magic realism and fairy tales include elements of magic or make-believe. This can include myths, ghosts, monsters, and other supernatural features. Differences include not only physical features within the genres, but also the intentions behind creating it. Fairy tales are specific to Europe, which means most stories center Europeans, which calculates to whiteness, which translates to white characters. If your story did not acknowledge or embrace the patriarchal standards at the time, then you wouldn't be considered a mainstream artist. Actually, many writers that didn't embrace these social norms, such as women, queer writers, etc., concealed their names to protect themselves from public scrutiny. Magic realism was coined by a 1920s German critic by the name of Francis Rowe, in hopes of taking art into a new direction, which included exaggerating real objects in art. The genre also became popular in Latin American publishing. Alejo Carpentier, who was one of the first writers that implemented magic realism in his fiction, described magic realism as an amplification of a perceived reality, required and inherent in Latin American nature and culture. Saunders 121 through 138. Transforming the normal, common, realistic, and everyday into a fantastical magic story. The novel Magic Realism discusses the genre in a more detailed sense, mentioning its origins, cross-cultural variants, and overall benefits to a learning society. Bauer writes, magic realist children's fiction offers the opportunity for children to explore disruptions in their ordinary world, secure in the knowledge that such magic and extraordinariness can be contained. Bauer's 100. Basically, magic realism takes place in an accurate period of history or a period of time that is real and relatable. The magic in these stories are used to amplify real struggle, situations, and events. These stories give children and all readers in general the ability to apply magical stories to their own issues. This is not only appealing to a wider audience, but it also aids in educating and interpreting literature. Also, something that is important to mention, magic realism often has a pattern of using hyperboles to exaggerate ordinary things and other figures of speech, making events, feelings, and objects appear more outlandish or bigger than what they actually are. It's about perception, guys. The book Beloved takes place in post-emancipation America, or 1873. In this period, formerly enslaved people began to navigate their lives, careers, and resources while living with painful memories in the aftermath of slavery. Beloved is a retelling based on the true story of an escaped slave named Margaret Garner. In 1865, who right before being caught killed her 2-year-old daughter and was planning to commit suicide as well. Her rationale for killing her daughter was because she believed even death was better than slavery. Beloved, the retelling, narrates the story from the mother's perspective through a fictional character, Sethe, differing from the original story, which was reported by a white journalist. The haunting of Beloved takes place in House 124, where traumatic memories of life at the Sweet Home Plantation linger. This lively presence is felt among residents, including Mother Sethe, her sister Denver, and one of her mom's friends' partners, Paul D. In Morrison's words, shivering, Denver approached the house, regarding it as she always did, as a person rather than a structure, a person that wept, sighed, trembled, and fell into fits. Morrison 2-3. In other words, The supernatural elements of the house feed off the livelihood of its residents. We learn about the many traumatic situations endured by each resident through the presence of the supernatural. Two major ones, of which include the birthing of Denver and the murdering of Beloved. One interaction involves a very exhausted yet clean and presentable girl appearing on the front doorsteps of the 124 Blue Road house. With these details, the audience can assume that this girl is kind of weird. Unnatural, maybe? Maybe supernatural? A girl who has walked miles and miles searching for resources and help with not even a strand of hair out of place, like, oh yeah, and her name is also Beloved. A coincidence? Sethe and Denver find complete comfort with the presence of this girl. I mean, they have a full-on familiar relationship with the ghost because, it's Beloved. It's her Denver's sister, Sethe's daughter, despite the oddness of it all. Sethe and Denver happily welcome her in. Sethe feeling especially maternal and caring towards the girl named Beloved. Beloved seems to be very curious in getting to know the lifestyle and information of the family. While discussing her hair and other routines of the family, Beloved asks Sethe, your woman, she never fixed up your hair? Morrison 118. By woman, she's referring to Sethe's mom. Now you might be wondering, Angel, you chose the most random quote of all time. Where are you going with this? And it's like, yeah, I know, just give me a second. Though this is a simple question, throughout Beloved's time at the house, she seems to want answers. She craves to learn about her family. It's as if she's asking questions with the sole purpose of hearing them relive past experiences that haven't seemed to ever have been discussed. Through these questions, Sethe becomes very vulnerable towards not only the absent relationship of her mom, but to her emotions and experiences in general. In an article interpreting the space and trauma within Toni Morrison's Beloved, Hawksoon writes, the very fact that it houses Sethe's trauma and forces her to confront it daily, despite her valiant refusal, actually predisposes it towards healing. Sethe's revisitation of her traumatic past and her eventual liberation from it. Hawksoon 244. The mere presence of House 124 forces Sethe to repeatedly confront her own trauma. The quote even supposes that the house is in support of Sethe's mental well-being, as if it's fighting with her and not against her. Towards the end, Beloved's presence at 124 comes to an end. As Sethe becomes emotional about this due to her connection with Beloved, she begins to reflect and have flashbacks of the murder itself, stating what it took to drag the teeth of that saw under the little chin. That anybody white could take your whole self for anything that came to mind. Not just work, kill, or maim you, but dirty you. She could never let it happen to her own. The best thing she was her children. Morrison 474 through 475. Morrison uses Beloved's presence as a form of magical realism that reopens wounds and emphasizes the traumatic guilt, impact, and pain left from the murder, as well as slavery as a whole. Vulnerability has been a reoccurring theme with the presence of the ghosts, as later in the book, Sethe begins to feel more comfortable confronting occurrences of the past. As Danae states, trauma victims need to forgive both themselves and society for letting the events happen. A new level of the healing process can be reached when the victim can forgive the abuser. Danae 210 through 211. The quote suggests that once Sethe frees herself of the weight of the murder, then maybe she can begin one of her healing processes. And the reason why I say one is because there's so much more than murder to heal from in this case. And in many cases. And I don't necessarily believe that you can just heal yourself of trauma. More so learn how to confront and deal with it. That's just personally though. As a magical element, the ghost of Beloved amplifies traumatic events and emotions felt by characters. These specific depictions of trauma were exclusive to Black people, as all of the tragedy stemmed from living in a plantation house or the general oppression that came with being Black. Beloved haunts the residents in two forms, the first one being a ghost and the second being a physical human version of the ghost named Beloved. Morrison develops the characters in Beloved so that readers can deeply connect with their situations and perceive their emotions, fears, and traumas. With the use of magical elements like the ghost Beloved, Morrison gives trauma a face and a trigger, and an identity, making it personal, while amplifying the historical trauma experience. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and learned something today.